I'd like to begin talking about my eco-Shakespeare performance project, Cymbeline in the Anthropocene, by starting with an epigram from Christopher Schauberg's Searching for the Anthropocene. Inspired by Bruno Latour's metaphor of circling the planet, quote, looking for a new place to land, unquote, in a world we have ubiquitously damaged, Schauberg identifies airports and airportness, ironically, as the leading sites and symptoms of our new Anthropocene homelessness. It's now an especially melancholy displacement because airports remain largely off limits during the COVID-19 crisis. But these conditions are also invitations to recover an authentic and sustainable sense of local placefulness and global belonging. Schauberg defines that challenge in these terms. The Anthropocene is always as much of a social provocation as it is a scientific paradigm. It's a call to responsibility, to acceptance, and to taking action, however small an individual action may seem in the vast collective species-sized dilemma that such a shift also entails. Each interaction opens up possibilities for a new orientation. Cymbeline in the Anthropocene takes action by mobilizing Shakespeare's reputation as the world's best-known playwright in order to tell new stories about our era's traumas of progress and hopes for survival. Its reorientations consist of creative adaptations of the playwright's late tragicomic romance in site-specific productions on 5 continents. Bringing together the power of Shakespeare in performance and local eco-dramaturgy not only creates new public narratives about living in the world we have deformed, but also reshapes Shakespeare's cultural image as a playwright who speaks to today's contemporary fears of human and non-human extinctions. Theatre companies on 5 continents are graciously contributing production materials and video performances to a research website and archive supported by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Each collaborating company is recreating the play's stories and terrains to reflect regional environmental histories and conflicts. In all cases, the goal is to use community performances of Cymbeline to open actors' and audiences' imaginations at home and abroad to today's pressing bioglobal concerns. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has delayed all our scheduled performances until this year. But by the time you listen to this talk, the first ones will have debuted in Melbourne, Australia, live, indoors, and in person, and in Yosemite, Merced, California, in a feature film shot on location in both places. Please visit our website for videos and blogs about these and other collaborating productions into 2022. Why choose Cymbeline for such a project? The short answer is the play's huge potential for theatrical reinvention. Cymbeline's relative unfamiliarity means it carries less traditional baggage and is verbally, visually, and musically adaptable in modern performance. It's also packed with stories and themes that readily analogize today's climate change and COVID-19 crises, such as human greed and cruelty, personal risk and resilience, co-evolved dwelling and being, accountability and forgiveness. The range of its locales, cities, rivers, forests, harbors, mountains, makes it attractively open to topographic invention. Its characters experience this spatial diversity in sometimes hostile, sometimes welcoming ways. And this too speaks to the unsettling physical and existential impacts of today's environmental volatility. In generic terms, Cymbeline's tragic comedy juxtaposes scenes of intense grief and joy, disgust and eroticism, weirdness and queerness. The mental and emotional agility required of both actors and spectators to negotiate these reversible and non-linear shifts suggests behavioral strategies we are all discovering in order to live through the Anthropocene's uncontrollable threats. This includes heightened concern for exploited people and animals, forced into the precarity of what late environmental philosopher Val Plumwood calls the world's trashed and abandoned shadow places. The speculative and supernatural elements of Cymbeline's romance narrative, personified by its revenants, gods, and soothsayer, also offer mimetic opportunities to represent today's non-analog and anti-metaphorical crises that accurately capture the Anthropocene's resistance to purely rational explanations or predictions. Most importantly, perhaps, Cymbeline invites us to acknowledge collective responsibility for narcissistic exploitation of human and non-human others. It asks us to forgive the dickheads, as we delicately called them at our pre-COVID planning meeting. And it inspires us to, quote, live and deal with others better. That includes non-white, non-metropolitan, and non-binary others. The extravagance of Cymbeline's fictions has long been an object of critical ridicule. But in the 21st century, what Dr. Johnson called the play's imbecilities seems strangely apt for the emerging new normal of the Anthropocene's seemingly impossible causes and effects. Appreciation for this human-altered state of naturalism shatters dreams of pastoral homeostasis associated with older Romantic and green Shakespeares. The play's twists, turns, and revelations propel its characters into new forms of multi-temporal consciousness and interspecies subjectivity, which the Anthropocene's bizarre ruptures and intimacies are also reshaping. Take, for example, the time-twisting moment when the predatory Renaissance Machiavel Giacomo, hiding in a treasure chest brought from imperial Rome, emerges in a bedchamber furnished with classical books and cosmopolitan ornaments of early modern globalization, situated in provincial ancient Britain, to violate a fairy tale princess and devour her reputation. Because the play's plots are drawn from folk tales and romance fiction, the Wicked Stepmother and the long-lost prince's narratives, for instance, they connect transculture with non-English speaking traditions. Cloten's English colonial arrogance towards inhabitants of rural Wales also suggests indigenous European experiences of first contacts, while Inigen's apparently territorially induced sickness creates a reversed reflection of the West's devastating bio-impacts on non-European life forms. Eco-appropriations of Cymbeline in the Anthropocene will bear witness to the recognition that whoever controls today's cultural narratives about the new era of human planetary domination will also determine the Earth's destinies, and perhaps the futures of our solar neighbors, for better or worse. Thinking further in structural terms, the mashed up paradoxes and ironies of Cymbeline's plot lines seem perfect for getting our heads around today's seemingly far-fetched disasters, like ice storms in Texas or pandemics from pangolins. Theatrical adaptations which layer allusions to or images of such experiences usefully decenter the supposed exceptionalism of human consciousness. In Cymbeline, animal outsides become human insides, and human flesh morphs into animal selfhood. After the racist bully Cloten provokes Guiderius into beheading him, happy river fishes feast on Welsh rarebit. Several new engagements with the project are already extending its imaginative and activist possibilities. Among senior undergrads in English at the University of California, Merced, Amber Loper's brilliant avian adaptation of the play, and Serena Johnson and Sierra McCormack's haunting musical reflection of Fideli's burial song reflect the creative posthumanism of a new generation of eco-artists. Hilary Eklund's first years at Loyola University, New Orleans, have reinvented Cymbeline's characters through musical playlists and pop art. Evelyn O'Malley's students at the University of Exeter have remapped the play towards a post-lockdown production in their stunningly beautiful Cymbeline. The weekly blogs on our website have been showcasing these co-creations, as well as tracking the progress of our main contributing companies in imaginatively related productions, such as Gretchen Minton's Timon of Anaconda, which you will hear about directly after my talk. To adapt a metaphor from media ecologist Alenda Chang, our project is trying to create a kind of theatrical game screen through which we can interact and transform and not just reflect Anthropocene impacts in small, localized, but globally networked ways. We invite other teachers, students, scholars, and practitioners to participate in these playfully serious exchanges. In the brief time remaining, I'd like to focus on just one particular eco-orientation in Cymbeline, bottom-up critique of the emergent ethos of maximizing the profitable exploitation of material resources and human labor. In her book, Hope and Grief in the Anthropocene, Australian geographer Leslie Head shows how community-centered remedial practices can redress the grief and anger which haunt the Anthropocene's threats to modern progress and the environmental and racial carnage which has sustained that fantasy. Cymbeline represents this kinds of grassroots resistance in ways that may reframe how we think about oppressive subjectivities in the Anthropocene. When the play opens, everyone except the king, his queen, and Cloten is feeling demoralized by the court's injustice towards Posthumus and Imogen and its indifference to the well-being of the country, later falsely dressed up as the emancipatory myths of a post-continental Britain. But lower rank or marginalized individuals have the courage to act what they feel and know is right. Cornelius undermines the queen's attempt to turn her deadly animal poisons on Imogen. Courtier lords amusingly contain and divert Cloten's unsavory violence. Imogen may be a princess, but her tyrannical and ecologically myopic father abuses her like a caged animal. Her empathetic servant Pisanio becomes one of several minor heroes in the play by abetting Imogen's escape in disguise, aiding her on the grueling exile into Wales, and imagining transnational solidarity with the conscientious Roman ambassador, Lucius. By sending Posthumus a benignly deceptive bloody cloth, Pisanio not only disrupts and shames Posthumus's revenge plans, but also sparks incipient self-critique of his destructive misogyny, which the play tropes as male violence towards feminized nature generally, through Imogen's association with birds and other non-human animals. Belarius is socially above Pisanio in rank, but like Imogen, he also suffers court slander and exile. He survives these misfortunes by living close to the land in rural Wales and teaching the king's two sons human-animal codependence in the hope of eventually subverting Cymbeline's brittle patriarchal tyranny. These are essential skills of risk and resilience as Anthropocene calamities intensify while governments continue to bow to the interests of the greedy and the powerful. The universalism which Cymbeline finally celebrates is not that of Caesar, the universal landlord in Antony and Cleopatra, but of globally responsible localism. Our project's first two collaborating productions in Australia and California are conceptually and materially invested in this vernacular ethos, as are other contributors to the project. They are showing that hope can emerge from environmentally traumatized lives and places, and that eco-theater can move us to repair local habitats to enable all forms of life to flourish. The self-consciousness of Cymbeline's dramatic storytelling invites eco-critical and dramaturgical recreation by student and community practitioners who, so far, have been in the vanguard of reframing Shakespearean performance in terms of new Anthropocene perspectives. Thank you very much.